A Louisiana police captain says the Red Cross stopped him from praying with flood victims at a shelter. Captain Clay Higgins posted a Facebook video telling his story. He says a Red Cross worker in his town of Lafayette told him he could not pray because people might be offended, and he was then told to leave.
Our First Amendment rights include the freedom of religion and the free practice thereof. Moreover, man, bigger than our own First Amendment, what's wrong with offering loving prayer to people that are in a shelter? Why would an agency like the Red Cross deny such a thing?
Clay says he decided to go pray with the victims because, quote, this flood is in biblical proportion and I believe it certainly calls for a biblical response. He says he just wanted to offer love, encouragement, and compassion.
It sounds like it's straight out of a science fiction movie, but a pair of doctors say they're planning on performing a head transplant from one patient's body to another. The plan is to perform it as early as next year, and now a Russian man has asked to be the patient. The man is confined to a wheelchair and suffers from a rare, often fatal genetic disorder that breaks down muscles and kills nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. Because of that, his movements are limited to feeding himself, typing, and controlling his wheelchair. Still, the procedure remains highly controversial. Many scientists have spoken out against the plans, accusing the surgeons behind it of promoting false science and hopes. The Atlantic reports that if the surgery ends up being approved, it would likely take place in China or a country outside the U.S. or Europe because it would not be approved in the Western world.
How long have you been sober?
Almost a month this time.
Longtime addict Kevin McCutcheon took what he thought was heroin earlier this month and nearly died. You've got tears in your eyes.
Yeah,
Because?
because I'm here and I'm alive and I shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be.
No.
Addicts often don't know what's mixed into the heroin they get from dealers, but McCutcheon believes that most recent dose contained the powerful opioid carfentanil. Carfentanil is so deadly it's not even prescribed for humans. It's typically used to tranquilize large animals like elephants. It's 100 times more potent than the similar drug prescribed for humans, fentanyl, and 10,000 times more potent than morphine. But carfentanil abuse is spreading, and authorities say at least 30 people have died from these overdoses in the Akron area since the July 4th weekend. Keith Martin heads the local office of the DEA.
Just this morning, we were able to go on the internet and get a quote for 100 grams of carfentanil, and that was $400.
$400 for an amount that would...
I mean, it would kill thousands of people.
In a promotional video, startup company Lightvert outlines how the UK capital's Shard building can be used as the world's biggest advertising display. By running a tiny reflective strip, high-tech images can be projected directly into people's eyes. The startup's business team using innovative technology and contacts from Cocoon Networks to break into China, the world's biggest market. Lightvert is one of the finalists competing in the Shanghai Innovation Competition this September.
Anima Point is very exciting.
Another, Eva Diagnostics, a company that claims affordable technology with gold standard systems. It boasts the potential to transform healthcare worldwide with a handheld device that can read details of a patient's condition while they're safely at home. Again, a firm identified by Cocoon Networks, meriting Chinese funding as well as introductions.
Talal Murat is one of the fortunate ones who have escaped the Islamic State group's brutal onslaught against the Yazidi minority in northern Iraq. When IS fighters descended on his uncle's farm near the Sinjar Mountains, the message was clear: convert to Islam or die.
One of them started to ask, "Who wants to be a Muslim?" He repeated that once or twice and no one accepted. He said, "Come on outside."
IS fighters separated the men from the women and children.
There were too many of us there, so they forced some of us to lie down on the ground. And it was then my uncle told us to run because they were going to kill all of us.
Murat fled to safety, hearing distant gunfire as the male members of his family were shot to death. The area around the Sinjar Mountains is dotted with mass graves from IS's attack on the Yazidis. The Associated Press has documented 72 such burial sites containing up to 15,000 bodies. The size of the dot on this map is based on the number of known bodies at a given site. Many more are expected to be uncovered as the Islamic State's territory shrinks. With the help of satellite photos, experts have been able to pinpoint likely areas where bodies have been buried. This photo, taken in 2013, shows a field near Mosul. Here's a look at the same area 8 months later, after reports that IS fighters stormed a jail and killed the prisoners in front of a nearby ravine.
According to the reports, a number of the bodies, they would fall into the ravine, and some managed to survive. In this whole area, we see that the earth, the actual dirt, has been pushed over. You can see looks like a little bit of a scalloped edge that is being pushed over the ravine.
But the process of excavating and trying to identify remains in the graves has been slow. At a site north of the Sinjar Mountains, staff from the regional Kurdish government took DNA samples from remains and reburied the bodies. But some worry the Iraqi labs aren't properly equipped to handle the daunting task.
Look, we have a huge number of victims. For this work, we'd like the international community to help us and to cooperate with us in matching these samples and to examine the DNA samples.
More grave sites remain untouched, surrounded by fences awaiting examination. As each week passes, chances worsen that a body will be identified and that proof of a crime will be uncovered.
I want my husband to have a grave, so during Eid and other events I can take the children to see their father's grave, and we can visit him always.
Now living at a refugee camp for Yazidi people, Talal Marat and his mother await permission to move his father's body.
How did you all decide who would actually carry the baby? And you had, I mean, that's a pretty serious discussion.
Actually, that was one of the easier discussions. We just said, you're older, you go first. I mean, we didn't really think that it was going to be this huge battle.
But it has been a battle in the effort to expand this family. Doctors 3 years ago told Erin they'd discovered issues with her reproductive system that left her infertile. What followed was a series of heartbreaks, 6 miscarriages between the two of them.
Every time we heard we were pregnant, every single time, and your brain just goes down this path. You think about that kid and what it's going to mean to you, and then it just gets taken away in an instant.
New Jersey is one of 15 states with laws requiring insurers to cover fertility treatments. But the Krupas say their insurance company initially denied their coverage because under New Jersey law, women their age are considered infertile if they're not able to conceive after 2 years of unprotected intercourse.
As you're looking at this law and realizing this doesn't apply to us, what went through your mind?
I talked to the financial coordinator, and I told her that was discrimination, that wasn't fair. And she said that was the law.
And what did you think at that time?
I mean, I was furious, but it seemed like there was nothing we could do about it.
A New Jersey state lawmaker is trying to do something about it. Assemblywoman Pamela Lamped is sponsoring a bill to update the language of the insurance mandate to allow it to apply to same-sex couples.
I think that there's a momentum, in front of us with all that's going on in the country, and I think the momentum is the here and now to be able to move this forward.
We have this goal, and we're not quitters, and we're going to fight until it happens.
The Krupas tell us they've accepted they might never have a biological child, but say they hope to make things easier for families down the road.
We just want to help other people that are experiencing this.
It shouldn't be this painful.
8-week-old Michaela is a medical mystery. She was exposed to the Zika virus in the womb, but does not have microcephaly, the birth defect marked by an abnormally small head and brain.
Look at that smile.
Maria Fernanda Ramirez Bolivar is her mother.
Normal.
Pero. She looks normal to me, her mom says, but the doctors say she's not. Ramirez Bolivar contracted the Zika virus in her native Venezuela when she was 3 months pregnant. Michaela has slight damage to one eye and stiffness on one side of her body. It took a team of doctors at the University of Miami several weeks to rule out other causes. Dr. Ivan Gonzalez is a part of her medical team. The ultrasound she had in Venezuela and the one she had here in the United States before she gave birth all looked like a normal baby.
All looked like a normal baby. It didn't have any abnormalities.
So you didn't know that there were abnormalities until after birth?
Until after birth. We ultrasound the actual baby when it came out.
Gonzalez says scans of Michaela's brain show calcification, which is like a scar, and could lead to seizures down the road. Her prognosis is uncertain. How long do you think you'll have to study a child like Michaela?
It's very difficult to say right now how long we need to follow her. The plan for now is to follow her about 5 to 6 years.
There is also more evidence today the effects of Zika are not limited to babies. In Puerto Rico, where Zika is an epidemic, the CDC reported increased cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's a neurological disorder that causes muscle weakness and numbness. This year, 34 patients with the syndrome also had evidence of Zika or similar virus infection. One person has died.
As we head into the regular NFL and NBA season, don't be surprised when multi-million-dollar athletes start opening their uninformed mouths in an attempt to sway the national conversation towards division. Case in point, 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick refused to stand for the national anthem, later explaining, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder." First of all, that was a statement of division. America is under a fierce attack by globalism. If we don't stand strong as united citizens, that anthem Kaepernick refuses to acknowledge may not eventually even exist under Obama's Trans-Pacific Partnership. Yes, we have an epidemic of bad cops getting away with murder, but this doesn't mean all cops are guilty, and it certainly doesn't mean the rest of America is either. It means our justice system is corrupt. Shouldn't the movement be renamed to Bad Cops Matter? When anyone with celebrity status supports Black Lives Matter, they are knowingly or blindly supporting George Soros, a self-described megalomaniac hell-bent on using his status as a foreign billionaire to divide the United States. Soros once wrote, "I fancied myself as some kind of god. If truth be known, I carried rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control. Otherwise, they might get me into trouble." That's who you ultimately support, Kaepernick. You want to change things? Acknowledge the breakdown of civilization that allows 483 people to be killed in Chicago so far this year. Education has been repackaged and become an unaffordable burden. Industry and commerce have been shipped overseas. Opportunity has become scarce. It's not race that matters. It's the economy, stupid. Breitbart reports more proof came out today when our own Commerce Department downgraded the second quarter GDP from a horrendous 1.2% growth to a depressing and tragic 1.1%. Our economy is wrecked and dysfunctional. To make matters worse, there is a huge deficit of skilled labor, welders, electricians, machinists that the upcoming generations aren't claiming. Where is the effort to steer that kid off the mean streets into a life of responsibility and relative comfort? Kaepernick, take it from Seahawks cornerback Richard Sherman, who recently said, "I was not suppressed by any man or woman, white or black. I worked myself up from Compton High School to a scholarship at Stanford University, and I did it myself. It is out of the mouths of cheap thugs that are hurting our young and taking away the chances they have to make themselves a productive part of society. Brothers and sisters, the only slavery in America now is the one you put yourself into." Kaepernick, isn't it just a little ironic that greater men than you have fought and died for your right to insult their sacrifice?